Hello everybody. We will talk about generic competency dictionary in this particular video. So everything that comes as far as terminologies, as far as the domain knowledge goes for every functional area, the competency dictionary is what we will be highlighting it in this particular video. I have tried to keep this video very short and try to elaborate it with an example primarily from the country of Philippines so that it becomes very neutral for every one of us to understand what a generic competency dictionary one. Next, according to your requirement, your companies, your countries of situations, wherever you are located in, you should be applying the principles so that you come up with an optimum model of the competency that is required or determined as valid as per the situation. So this is all about generic competency dictionary that we'll talk about it. Primarily, we will be abbreviating this term into GCD. G stands for generic, C for competency, and D for dictionaries out here. So exactly speaking, the domain knowledge, the functional areas, what are the competencies that is required? We will have a brief interactions out here. So, primarily speaking, understanding competency. Let us understand competencies is that attribute that a person needs to display, emote, or behave, which makes him or her a successful in the determined career that he or she has chosen as such. So that is what competencies is all about. It is not about competence. Everybody has the competence, the quality required, the qualification required, the knowledge required, the technical know-how. Perhaps everybody is equally competent, but the flair of displaying those requisite attributes, the behavior, the values, which makes a person much more successful is what competencies are all about it. Essentially speaking, we have something called core competence and leadership competencies. So, what are we looking into it? We are talking about core competencies, leadership competencies, and functional competencies. I will be speaking everything about the dictionary part, about the terminology that needs to be done around it. Core competencies, which makes the organization unique, which gives the competitive advantage to the organization over its competitor. Sometime, and in fact most of the time, these core competencies are either a part of your leadership competencies or an organizational competencies, because essentially if the top management behaves in a particular fashion that everybody emulates in the organization, it becomes a leadership competency. Why? Because we have those behavior which is aligned to the organization goals. Remember, core competencies are fundamentally embedded into the values, mission, and the culture of the organization. So, mission, vision, values, cultures of the organization that comes around it. Leadership competencies, on the other hand, are the knowledge, skills, and behavior (KSA or ASK). Knowledge, skills, and behavior that we look into it, which is required by the top management to display, so that everyone needs to know what are the right modalities of approach as far as handling or working in that organization. So this is what leadership competencies is all about. It functional competencies, on the other hand, are about specific body of knowledge, the domain knowledge that needs to be embedded, which you require to excel probably, so as to you can perform your job in a most easiest and competent fashion perhaps. So these competencies may be transferable if a person is working in one domain, probably in a different situation, different company, different location. So when they interact with other roles, you have a set of technical or functional competencies. So let us understand, a finance guy will have finance as a domain and accounting as a principle should be known by everybody. Our software personalities would be competent in coding into different languages and probably coming up with the programs that is required by the company to meet the end objective per se. So yes, we have spoken about the core competencies, we have spoken about the leadership competencies and the functional competencies per se. The GCD, the generic competency dictionary, uses method of build, buy, and borrow. If we look into it, the competency development that has been showed around here is to build, buy, and borrow. Often this thing can be modified. Often you borrow a competency stream. I've said it in the very initial of this presentation that I have deliberately taken the GCD elaboration with the help of a country called Philippines. Probably you need to borrow this thing and apply it to your situation specific, probably to your country, probably to your organization. So you need to modify it. So you have to have a build, buy, and borrow, which perhaps will be your the primary or probably the secondary sources of data, and it gives you an understanding where you need to excel in. Yes, the functional competencies is what has been mentioned out here. We're talking about communications, we are talking about planning, we are talking about in IT, information technology, we're talking about legal, we're talking about general administrative services and environmental. Now, these two is what we are looking to build the dictionary, the GCD that we want to call around it. And this is what the GCD is all about. So let us build GCDs as the case might be. So we have leadership competencies, we have core competencies, and functional competencies. Functional being mentioned out here. So, proficiency level, I have what we can further do or bifurcate is then now we can have as a beginner level, a capable level, a competent level, and probably an example or distinguished level as such thing. So, we can have four levels, level 1, 2, 3, 4, which will facilitate performance planning and management, as this will be giving us an indication as to which level we have achieved into it, level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4. So this helps us to keep a track of it. This helps us to emulate what needs to be done to go into the higher rung of things. Remember, level 1 is the basic level, the novice level, the beginner's level. It is for every person who has just been appointed to the company and probably is looking to pick up the tricks of the trade. Level 2 is when people have understood the working modalities. You are talking about capable developing capabilities, developing intermediate, or probably you have an understanding what are the things that needs to be done and what are the things that needs to be avoided. Level 3 is where you have inherited, probably where you have been programmed into, and it is there in your values too, which you are actually displaying in your behaviors that the company has already determined. So, what does it mean? That you have become a competent, accomplished, and probably a wonderful practitioner of the company's mission, vision, values, cultures are concerned. And level 4 is a person where the employees who are the master, the expert, the superior person who sets example, and you can quote him or her, probably emulate him or her, and you are on the right path. So we have to understand where we are standing. So on a convenient level, I will always say this as a bias model, BIAS, which stands for basic, intermediate, advanced, and superior. Again, I repeat, bias model, basic, intermediate, advanced, and superior. We need to choose where we are standing. We need to understand what we are doing and how this model needs to be built upon it. Remember, generic competency development is the crux of the thing that we need to go around it. So we need to understand which behavioral indicators are prevalent, which behavioral indicators are to be accomplished. So this is either the behavior indicators are either present or absent or missing. It cannot be in transition mode. Sometimes I display exemplary behavior and sometimes I do pathetic behavior. That is not acceptable in any form. The competency dictionary provides a ready reference for human resources and probably every other employees. When I say employees, different line of employees: line 1 the front line, line 2 the supervisory, line 3 the managerial, line 4 the directors or the board of governors, as the case might be, during the installation and implementation of competency based HR system. For all competencies in the dictionary, a definition is provided. Each competencies, remember, would have those four level of basic, intermediate, advanced, and superior. Bias, BIAS, as the case might be, which will give me the indicators can be classified as scope, context, autonomy, and responsibility, as the case might be. This is what we want to go around it. Here is the thing that I wanted to stress around: the scope, the context, the complexity, the autonomy, the responsibility that has been mentioned out here time and again is what we are looking forward to it. Again, now the GCD, there are different competencies. When I am trying to talk to the audience of this particular video, please understand your proficiency level has to be mapped to the chart which have been given around here, which will give me bias as in basic, intermediate, advanced, and superior, and the description as for your scope, complexity, which needs to be text based or task based. So every time you have determined a competency, let's say punctuality is one of those competencies that you are looking into it. Let's say customer orientation is another competency that needs to be distinguished. Let's say the quality is another thing that needs to be distinguished, where we are looking into it, what are we lagging into it. Finances might be another thing that goes around here. So what are my core discrepancies, where are we standing, how do we develop it, is it at what stage, is it at the basic level, is it at the advanced level, how do we go around it. If it is superior things, that means those are absolutely demonstrating in a very voluminous terms loudly of many advanced competencies within the competency, appears to be capable of mentoring others, every one of them. And last but not the least would be an autonomy of the response and responsibility as to where we are standing. Obviously, yes, for basic level, you don't have much of a decision making capability, where in advanced level, everybody is working independent in silos. They are aware of what needs to be done. In between is the intermediate and advanced stage, which is quite fluidic. Probably for intermediate stage, you don't take a necessary decision, but probably you take it, you get an approval and go ahead with it. But in advanced stage, many a times the routine work can be done on your own, probably within a beyond a limit, probably in all probabilities. Beyond a limit, you need references from the superior levels as to the approval is concerned, and you enact upon it, or you can have that advisory role where you can give your suggestions thereby. So let us proceed with starting as such. GCD, the step one, step two, step three. First and foremost thing is all about vision, mission, values, and the mandate that organization would say. So the question that needs to be asked, and I am trying to put in the question in your mind so that you can determine your own competencies per se. What does an organization hope to achieve? What are the end objective that you would like to see around it? What are the critical organization results? And what are primary drivers of success, as the case might be? The second question would be, where is the organization headed? What are we talking in terms of 2 years time, 3 year time frame, 5 years time frame, 10 years time frame? So we are trying to set up a direction for the organization. What are the short term, mid term, and long term plans? Next is, given this, what competency should a member of an organization possess to help achieve the goals and objectives thereby? Absolutely. Once you have done this thing, your basic step number one is very clear. The core competencies are aware of it. Let's come to the leadership competencies. When you are talking about, let's just select a family that you can pilot. When I say family, it can be a functional department. So, in your functional department, what jobs are most common in an organization? For which is a line organization or staff organization that we want to go around it? An academic organization would have all the faculties as the line members, and rest of the people associated will be a staff member. In a tax audit firm, everybody who's associated with the finance would be a line member, and rest of the people who are associated with the department are staff members. So what are we trying to do it? We're trying to identify the type of organization that we are working for. What jobs are most common in my organization? Who do I need to interview to find out the competence requirement of these jobs? What kind of support do I need in order to gather the data that I'm looking for? You need to answer such questions, select competencies and behavior necessary for the job that you go around it. This is what we will be talking in step number three. Three is, we are talking, trying to pinpoint everything to the health altogether. What are the questions that we need to ask? Is, what section of generic competency dictionary should I mark for this specific job? Which jobs are we talking around? Are there behavior that is needed to be clarified by the interviews? What behavior would be appropriate for specific level, as the case might be? And you need to answer these questions. You need to come up with certain answers. Otherwise, it doesn't function at all. It will always give you confusion, probabilities, and outcomes. So yes, step number one is all about the core competency. Step number two is all about the leadership things that you go around it. Step number three is you are coming down to the functional aspect and trying to pinpoint a responsibility to a position, a job description to a position, and that is what we look into it. If you can pinpoint it, you know what competencies are you looking into. Let's speak about the strategic. competencies as far as leadership is concerned. You are talking about creativity in leadership. You're talking about leading the change. You're talking about bringing or building team members, team spirit within your working relationship. You are trying to manage performance, coaching for result, creating and nurturing a high performance team organization per se. I'm just giving you an example. If you look into it, we are just giving an example for everything that comes around here. So, what are we looking into it? Leadership competencies. We have spoken about a lot about the countries that I'm trying to quote and give you an example. This is exactly where it comes around it. We are talking about thinking strategically, leading change, building collaborations, managing performances, coaching for results. We are doing nothing but creating and nurturing a high performance organization. This is exactly the requirement for the day, as the case might be. Thinking strategically, creating strategically and creatively, leading the change, building collaborations and inclusive working. Now, what are we looking as far as leadership is concerned? You are supposed to look far ahead into the future. You should be able to predict what the organization is going to do in due course of time. You need to motivate your people to go for the change, because until and unless you change, you do not upgrade an organization. Building a team force, a collaboration, a sense of trust, a sense of camaraderie within the organization, managing performance and coaching for result is what we all assign for it. Remember, a leaders will not only look for the change or look for the employees to emulate them, but leaders should motivate the employees to go for a higher performance standards altogether. So managing performance is one of the major things that goes around it, and this needs to the tempo needs to be maintained as far as creating and nurturing high performance organization. Talking about functional competencies, yes, there are many plentiful of functional competencies, right, for financial management to human resource management, general administrations, communication, planning, environment, information technology, legal, and social services. These are all the gamuts of the thing that needs to be taken care of. Again, I repeat, human resources, public financial management, general administrative services, communication, planning, environment, information technology, legal and social welfare. Human resource management is a type of employees that you look to go around it. Is it to be a people friendly or a technically sound people that you look into? Financial management is how you're going to meet the requirements of the finances, arrange finances. Is it on a debt basis? Is it on a stock option basis? Do you want to go to the share market and get your chips listed, your company listed? What are you going to go around it? What are the regulatory authorities that are going to help you, assist you, or impede you? General administrative services, communication, planning, the way you are communicating in certain organization, people communicate over phone, and verbal communication is good enough, fair enough for things, and there are still other organization which would hardly depend nothing on a verbal communication. Everything needs to be jotted down. An email has to be produced. At least an approval is required for getting things moved. Planning is where you go and build your strategic requirements for the day. Environmental, the information technology that we are talking about, the legal, the social welfare, and so on and so forth, as the case might be. Talking about the administrative services, what are we looking into it? We are looking into the nitty-gritties of liaising with the regulatory authority in terms of uh, permissions, in terms of any regulatory framework that needs to be taken care of, in terms of legal requirements. We are talking about achievement into details, attentions, professionalism. We are talking about interpersonal skills. We are talking about documentation. We are talking about computer skills. You're talking about reactions. How early can you react? What is your long waiting time, if there are any? What are we looking into it? There are different companies would have different generic competency dictionary. Some companies prefer a waiting time. Some companies cannot do without a waiting time. Some companies actually avoid waiting times. The responses has to be strikingly fast, as the case might be. Communication, I have already stated. So we might be talking about oral communication, interpersonal communication. What mode of communication is important? How do you communicate? Every organization, the communication models are way different than one another, and that needs to be taken care of or understood time and again, as the case might be. This is all what we look into forward to it. How do we go ahead and what is to be done? Presentation skills, the written communication, the corporate communication. Corporate communications are communication when you do it with your media personalities, when you're doing it with the general public. How do you interact with the media? How friendly are you with the media? Or is it not so media friendly companies? The requirement there is no requirement for media publicity because the product is in demand. A pharmaceutical company, for example, the chemical composition is in demand. The doctors are referring to it in the product. The patients are wanting it. You don't require to do around it. Probably when you compare it with the electronics devices, the company needs to build a brand, probably inform the customers, educate them about what are the new features that needs to be taken for care for, and how the product is going to be beneficial for the company. So yes, corporate communication plays an immense role. Influencing and building relationship, computer skills, service delivery is what we are looking forward towards it. Next comes is a planning part of it. A planning is nothing but probably a long-term planning, short-term planning, operational goals, strategic goals. What are we looking into it? We are looking into development plan. We are looking into short-term formative plan. We are looking into provisional plannings, the risk management, assessment, the analysis of risk needs to be done. We are talking about feasibility studies. Everything a company does successfully, or should I say any successful company would have a planning department which is dissecting every move of the market as the time goes by. Interpersonal skills, flexibility, stress management, data management, facilitation skills, communication, computers, and so on and so forth. And this is how we go across with it. Stress management, data management is the requirement of the day. And how do we uh, do the data analysis after data mining only? It's not data collections only. People generate, there are n numbers of data now freely available for the company, but data mining is very vital. How do we assess the risk of analyzing the data? How do we go around it? What are the alternatives that is available, kept in front of you? Now comes the environmental factors. A company working in a particular environmental has to have a lot to be associated with, because a success of the company depends how it mitigates that uprising in the environment, how does it mix with the environment and makes things very congenial, very cooperative, very cordial. And that is what environment planning, organization, delivering is all about it. That is what risk assessment is all about it. That is where we need to understand the program implementation process, the community organization, getting people along with you, monitoring, evaluating. We are trying to prepare a report, we are trying to educate the general public. We are trying to see that all compliances that has been mandated by the federal government is maintained. We are ensuring that all floras and faunas of the surrounding environment are protected and not harmed in any fashion per se. Information technology is all about IT. Competencies encompasses behavior necessary to succeed in providing IT. What are we looking into it is the fast delivery, or what fast delivery of information or services. What are we looking into it is the speed in which we assess the information and probably react to it. What are we looking into it? We are trying to give the customer the wow factor and thrill them. Now that can only be done if there is a proper database management, proper data pruning or mining is concerned, ensuring that the customers are kept in the loop, ensuring there's a transparency in the operations, the digital media and visualization, network, telecommunication, wireless, mobility knowledge, everything has been mentioned out there. Next is what we are talking about, legalities. Every government, every country has different legal system and different interpretation of the law that has been mandated out in the constitutions. So what are we looking into it? We are ensuring that we maintain our budgets, we maintain the compliance level, and ensure that we don't get entangled into any legal violation. What are we avoiding? We are trying to avoid all types of problem. We are trying to be investigative. We are trying to come up with solution before the problem arises. We are trying to manage data, improve upon our skills, communication, interpersonal skills, everything as per legality of the firm is concerned. We'll come to the last framework of social welfare. It is all about adoptions, advocacies, or case counseling. We will be talking about competency model, the recruitment system, ensuring there are the social fabrics of the community is not being disturbed, ensuring the living style, the lifestyle that the persons of the people are associated with are not getting too disturbed at all because of our business activities, because of the company's establishment. These needs to be ensure effective environmental protection places activities needs to be installed altogether. Things should not be rattled. And how do we go around it? We go it with case management, case analysis, understanding the requirement of the people, the networking, the linkages, writing. Probably we are studying it from different case studies that has happened in different parts of the world, and probably emulating the best practices there were, ensuring there's a venting processes where the people can vent out their grievances altogether, because the moment they vent out the grievances, half of your problem is solved. And before you can actually eradicate the problems altogether, grievance management is one of those things that can mitigate any untoward incidents. Group facilitation, community organizing, educating community, informing them, making community a participant in the business process. Presentation skill, program management is what we are looking into. Is we need to identify every project management and report thereby. With this, we come to an end of GCD, or Generic Competencies Dictionary per se. I'm sure most of you understand the various domain that we have spoken about it, the various level bias, basic, intermediate, advanced, and superior, and the functional competencies as far as the core functional leadership, what are the analytical skills that we goes around it. Thank you for watching this video till the very end.